Working off this.
Well, it's interesting because it's
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of Wellington Shire Council on this Tuesday, the 17th of December 2019. And if you could stand for the acknowledgement and the prayer, and in so doing, it's also an opportunity to welcome to the gallery tonight former Mayor Beth Ripper, OAM, who was Mayor between 2006 and 2007. It's a pleasure to have you here with us tonight. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gunai people, and pay respects to their elders, past and present. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the Wellington Shire Council, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that the good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. Apologies, CEO.
Councillor McCubbin.
Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? Councillor Stevens?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict of interest in item 3.7, just a conflicting duty under section 78B.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Moving on to item A4, confirmation of the minutes of the previous council meeting.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting, the 3rd of December 2019.
Second of that motion, Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Boggy, we'll move on. There's no business arising from the previous meeting, as I understand, CEO. Moving on to item A6, acceptance of late items. Councillor Stevens. Councillor Stevens, you have to move that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that that Council accept the late item in relation to timber industry.
Yep.
I'm not sure, I haven't got an exact wording. Have you got?
No, in fact, we might move to actually introducing the item so that we can accept it. I got that based before Apex, I think, but that's the polite term for it. Councillor Hull.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to propose the following motion as a late item that the Mayor write to all East and Upper House members of Parliament seeking their support for the proposed legislative inquiry into the Andrews government's to close down the native forestry industry by 2030, and 2, again, request the Andrews government to release all data on which this decision was so subsequently announced.
We need someone to accept it.
We need that to be the late item to be accepted, so it would be Councillor Stevens.
I'll now move that the late item be accepted, Mayor.
Second of that motion, Councillor Crosley. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Hull. We have a second. We've moved that motion. We need a second.
I'm about ready to move the motion. I'm going to move, Mayor, that the Mayor write to the Honourable. All went past me then. I'm going to move that the Mayor write one to all the East and Upper House members of Parliament seeking their support for the proposed legislative inquiry into the Andrews government to close down the native forestry industry by 2030. And 2, and again request the Andrews government to release the data on which this decision was so unexpectedly announced.
Second of that motion, Councillor Crosley, you had a point.
Yes, should the word
interpretation be Andrews government's decision?
Should the word decision be in there?
Oh yes.
Yes.
If I can.
So that amendment's clearly accepted, given it's just simply
Decision to close down.
afterwards government up there. Decision to.
Yeah.
Now I'm happy.
So that's now been seconded. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Hull. I think we're back on track now procedurally. That's good.
Yeah, we're going along all right. Thank you, Mayor. The purpose behind this motion is the try and find out why the government, particularly the Premier, so unexpectedly decided we're going to put 10,000 jobs in the timber industry out of operation. It has a serious effect on us with a strong forestry industry in Hayfield, employing 170 locals. And on top of that, all the workers that either harvest, haul or snag or bring the timber in. The upper house, which is still not controlled by the Conservatives, wishes to have an inquiry and to have the government release all the documents that were used to make this decision. The fact is that the decision was not made by the Andrews cabinet. It was made by the Premier as a captain's choice, so we're told, and with the backing of 2 or 3 other councillors, and it has caught a lot of the Labor members of Parliament off guard, and they are not very happy. Also, the National Labor Party is also very upset because on the day before this announcement came, they released their report on why they failed so badly at the last election, and it was brought out in that report that the Labor Party had lost the support of the blue-collar workers. And then that was on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, this was released, and 10,000 blue-collar workers got a kick in the guts from our state Labor Party. What we need to do is have the data that's been supposedly used, which is from various sources, laid out in the open so that it can be debated and looked at. Because on the facts that have been given to the industry and also the National Timber Councils and Timber Towns Victoria, is that the documents that have been investigated and put together by skilled operators show that the native timber industry is sustainable. And this has been verified by Joel Fitzgibbon from the Labor Party federally, who's the Shadow Minister, and the fact that he believes that something has to be done to protect this industry. So the purpose behind this motion here tonight is, number one, to see whether we can get a legislative inquiry, and 2, following up our previous letter to the Andrews government to release the data, of which the Premier hasn't had the decency to reply. Hopefully when he gets a second jab in the ribs, he might do something.
Thanks, Councillor Hull. Councillor Crossley, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Thank you. Yes, I will. Take this opportunity.
I think it's important that, as Councillor Hull said, that we actually do receive this data, because previously there have been plans to transition to plantation, and the industry had been working closely with the government and with the various agencies to that aim. But certainly this time frame is just not suitable to actually achieve that. And certainly some of the reasons given are disputed by the industry and other scientists. It's certainly it's clear that the statement of not logging in old forest, as we know that our local industry hasn't been used old growth forest for the last, I think, about 7 years, and certainly that was industry was quite happy to have that phased in, and certainly there's been no release of old growth forests from about June this year. So some of those aspects were sort of, I think, announced as a media spin rather than in consultation with the industry that it's vastly affected. The industry that we talk about, is the timber industry, is a really complex industry, and it's just that. It's not just logging. The trees are selected very carefully by an independent source, Vic Forest, that then they're the government agency, that then the various mills and manufacturers bid for that timber, and then they're allocated the timber on that system. There's only the coops are decided on where they're best suited, and where it's protecting the environment, and a very small amount is released each year. So I think we really need to see that this is an industry that's been working to transition, but these time frames that we've been given, or the industry been given, are far too short to achieve that. And certainly, as Councillor Hall said, it's putting an industry and a whole heap of jobs right down to manufacturing in ash, sustainable hardwood, which is mainly a manufacturing company, and also many of the downstream down in Melbourne of sophisticated industries that utilise this sustainable, renewable, and also greenhouse gas harvesting, which can be of great use in this climate issues that we're having now, to actually growing timber consumes greenhouse gases, and it's a renewable energy, sustainable, and it has a whole lot of uses, as we are seeing around this building and in this very room. So it's really an important industry to Wellington Shire, to Gippsland, and to the state of Victoria, and really this, as we say, unexpected and very early announcement of really a shutdown, not a transition, for the industry is very difficult to understand, and we need to see really what was in the thinking and to be able to challenge that data with science.
Thanks, Councillor Crossley. Given the criticality of the issue, Councillor Stevens, you'd like to speak to it as well?
Yes, thank you. If I've got the technological skills to turn my microphone on, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to support the motion and add the fact that, of course, you, the CEO, and I met with Mr McAvoy from the Radial Timber Company at Yarram, and he too is going to be seriously disadvantaged by this proposal. It's interesting to note that he's running an innovative and high-tech new mill down at Yarram. I mean, he's only got, I think, about 12 employees, but in the context of our community at Yarram, it's very important. And he's very surprised by this decision. He is, in fact, in the process of transitioning to full plantation, but he indicated to us, Mr Mayor, that he needs 5, preferably 8 more years, beyond 2030, I should say, to actually be able to do that. And otherwise, his whole business is in jeopardy of closing and not reopening. So I think it's just, yes, another indication of the fact that he's running a sustainable business, and it's going to be seriously impacted by these decisions. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Thanks, Councillor Hull, for bringing this late motion to us today. Given the timing, this is a critical issue, and we in fact need to keep the momentum up. This gives us an opportunity to get that message back out to the Premier prior to Christmas, and I think that's a good initiative. So thanks once again. We might move on to item A7. Notice of motion regarding the Latrobe Valley Authority. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Mayor write to the Honourable Jacqueline Symes, MP, Minister for Regional Development, Agriculture and Resources, thanking the Government for their support and the funding received to assist with strengthening community capacity and upgrading sporting infrastructure across the Wellington Shire. That was seconded by Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti. Thanks, Mayor. It's a bit of bouquets and brickbats, really, after the previous motion. But I think it's important to acknowledge the funding received. Something like $6.5 million to community groups, primarily in our community. This was all following the Hazelwood closure. Some would say that it was the least the government could do. I would say they have lots of choices, and I'm really glad they chose to put money into the communities in this way. There are something like 60 different line items I've seen of community groups and organisations who've received this funding. And most of the ones I've seen in that list have been groups that have been run by volunteers. And that $6.5 million in there is going to make a huge difference, or is making a huge difference to these groups and to our communities. So places like the Maffra Lawn Tennis Club, Lake Wellington Yacht Club, the Locksport Golf Club, the Upper Maffra Mechanics Institute, the Stratford Bowling Club, the Stratford Cemetery Trust, the declared a conflict of interest, Rosedale Lions, Hayfield Golf Club, Hayfield Bowls Club, all across our community have received funding for really important projects. So I recognise that the government had a choice they could have not made. I'm really pleased they made it, and I think it's appropriate that we actually say thanks for making that choice, because it's one of those areas that will have a lasting benefit in many of our community groups who work hard to make our community a better place to live. So thank you, councillors, for supporting on that motion.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. If we could move on to item A8.2, response to petition sale to Maffra bike path. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council, in response to the petition presented at the Ordinary Council meeting of the 19th of November 2019, seeking funding to investigate and plan for an off-road cycling path connecting Sale to Maffra. 1. Refer to consideration an amount of $50,000 to undertake a feasibility study, business case to the 2020-2021 budget development process, and write to the head petitioner advising him of the action to be undertaken.
Seconded by Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Ripper, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that this will be referred for consideration of an amount of the $50,000 for a feasibility study, and this will go to the 2020-21 budget. And as you can see, the concrete, asphalt and gravel, the cost and life cost of 50 years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Moving on, there's no questions on notice, CEO.
None, Mayor.
We move on to item A11, the Mayor and Councillor Activity Report. Before I, in fact, call for someone to move this motion, can I just simply report in regard to a couple of issues around this matter? I just want to highlight the fantastic SO night under the stars with Daryl Braithwaite. How's that? Along with meetings with Ash Timber, Radial Timber, and outside this reporting meeting, subsequently a visit with Vic Forest. It would be fair to say, and you've heard tonight, there is very much to do in this critical space. Also, I was privileged to optimistically listen to Professor Roscano during this reporting period, who outlined the low carbon opportunities for our region, and if we embrace some of the things that he has to say, I think we can be extraordinarily optimistic about what our future might look like. And just to comment on a lighter note, how amazing were the pupils from the Loch Sport Primary School at the carols by candlelight? And I'm delighted to say they've replaced their recorders with ukuleles. What a hoot that was. May not have been the greatest musical performance that I've seen in a long time, but in terms of lifting one's spirit, it was fantastic. And they're some of the joyous things that I get to do. Absolutely amazing. So now I'd like to see someone like to in fact, move this report. Councillor Ripper?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that the Mayor and Council Activity Report be noted.
Seconder for that motion, Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Ripper?
Thank you, Mayor. As you can see, it's self-explanatory that the councillors have been out and about around in the 3 wards, talking to people, attending meetings, etc. Thank you.
Moving on to item A12.1, Youth Council Report. And if I remember the right way we ought to do it is that if the Youth Mayor would like to come forward and present his report in the first instance. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. First of all, on behalf of the youth councillors, I would like to congratulate our re-elected Mayor, Councillor Hall, and newly elected Deputy Mayor, Councillor Ma. During my last quarterly report, I spoke of how youth councillors have broken up into smaller groups to prepare and plan for different projects for the youth in Wellington. Over the past quarter, we have been plugging away in these groups to begin our planning for Youth Week next year. The Youth Art Prize, a LGBTQI+ ball called the Opal Social, an outdoor movie night for Parks Weeks, and more. We have also really valued community members coming along to our meetings to raise different issues or ask for assistance with things they are passionate about. I'd like to highlight 2 of these. Harry Redfern, is a young person from Stratford who lives with dyslexia and is passionate about raising awareness around this condition. 4 of our youth councillors also have varying forms of dyslexia, so Harry's passion was very well met. When Harry suggested he'd like to help to light up the wedge red in awareness of dyslexia, we were thrilled to be able to support him make this happen. Line up an ABC interview for him and meet with him as the sunset of 31st of October outside on the wedge to watch it change colour. Next year, we encouraged Harry to get in touch earlier so we could help do a little more. Ted Dawson, I believe, is known to the councillors. An inspiring man who seems to just keep on working out ways to help his family and community make connections. Ted approached us to share his concerns about young people who have left school and not gone on to further study and are not tied into existing sports clubs. What do they do? Where do they socialise? Ted has attempted to start up a walking club, but it hasn't to date gained much traction. The Youth Council see a lot of merit in this idea, and we are currently working on a couple of strategies to try opportunities for young adults in our community to get together and be social. Fingers crossed, we will set upon an idea that has some legs. 2 of us went to Melbourne recently to attend the Origin Young Leaders Day, where they heard from a number of high-profile and inspiring speakers on the topic of leadership. Opportunities like this really broaden our perspective and understanding of what leadership can look like. On 27th of November, the youth councillors went down to the Port of Sale to show our support for the Rock the Port event. Drugs and alcohol are a big part of our youth culture. Unfortunately, in any event or activity, such as the Rock the Port event, to raise awareness of the pitfalls or to increase connections and resilience, have our complete support. The 2020 Wellington Youth Art Prize opened on the 2nd of December, and we are really pleased with the design of the promotional material, which was developed by local youth Zach Roberts. We can't believe we are halfway through our term as youth councillors, but are really excited about the busy months to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council receive the Youth Mayor's quarterly report.
Seconded by Councillor Marr. Is it opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Crosley wishes to speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Youth Mayor Ivan Reeves. It's been a great pleasure to hear what you've been up to. Got the name wrong again, I always do. I do apologise. It's actually great that I think this year's group have expanded and not just focusing on what they're doing, but have really supported other activities that youth and youth-targeted events have been. So I think that's been a real focus and a real difference of your term in office, so congratulations to you and your team. I also think it was a great pleasure to actually see the Youth Art Prize in the main gallery for the first time, which was terrific, and I think the art lived up to that positioning in that space, and I was also very pleased to see the coloured version of the promotional material, because at the meeting we only saw the black and white, so it really looks fantastic, and I think it really captures another part of what I think the Youth Council is all about this term is, I think, the diversity and then the inclusiveness of both how you run your meetings, how you welcome people into it, and what activities you are actioning. So congratulations to you all.
Thanks, Councillor Crosley. Moving on to Report of Delegates. Have a Report of Delegate. Councillor Ripper, I believe you have one for us.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make a report on, with Vic Forest, a visit last week for the timber release plan. The Mayor and myself and Mark Coleman, Economic Development Officer, drove to Rawson, to the DELP office, and we had a briefing and a visit to a coop. And Trevor Nicholton was the leader, and he is the regional manager. And Monique Dawson, the CEO, has just taken up this position recently. And also Alex Messina is the General Manager of Corporate Affairs, and Liz Langford, Regional Engagement Manager. Now, a few points. We're talking about timber, and timber is on our agenda. And there's a few dot points that I learned and we learned that I'd like to just pass on to councillors. 4 in 10,000 trees are harvested. Each tree can have a range of grades that can go to different mills throughout the state. Vic Forest operates in general management zone only, and in 6%, we go back 4 in 10,000 trees and 6% of the forest. Last year this was about 3,000 hectares. The forest estimate is around 7.1 million hectares. So you can all do your sums. All areas have to be regenerated and handed back. Now, we saw 3 coops in 3 different stages. A 3-year planning process goes into each coop. That's a lot of documentation, a lot of visits, a lot of protocols are put in place before a machine comes in. All coops are surveyed for biodiversity values. Vic Forest has changed harvesting practice as per high conservation values. Value, it was an absolute value and a pleasure to go to Rawson, and I know some of the councillors have seen this before, but I learned so much, and I really would like that to get out into the public of how important timber, downstairs, when we come up the stairs, timber, it is an industry in our shire we need to keep. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. If we might move on to item C 1.1, the Chief Executive Officer's Report. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Chief Executive Officer's report be received.
Seconded, Councillor Bye. Is it opposed? If not, motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Not a lot to say there, Mayor, just to make a note of the number of kilometres travelled in this role. Canberra, Maule, Fraser Coast and Melbourne, as well as taking some annual leave in the middle of it. Pretty remarkable the sort of work a CEO has to do.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. Moving on to item C 1.2, November 2019 Council Performance Report. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that Council receive and note the November 2019 Council Performance Report as attached.
Seconded by Councillor Crosley. Is it opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments in relation to the performance report. I note that in this report, the Council has received an additional drought funding allocation from the state government, and of that amount so far, 3.31 million has been allocated to be passed on to our farming community as rate relief. And also an additional amount of $1 million is now available from the Commonwealth Government for drought support, and the Council is in the process of preparing application to the Commonwealth to actually get the specific money allocated for projects. Something else I'd just like to note, that in this report the Council staff have been doing extensive work on the preparation for this forthcoming bushfire season. Unfortunately, things are not shaping up too well for the forthcoming bushfire season. Certainly in other states, I hope we don't have to mirror what has been going on elsewhere. Our capital works program is on target, and our cash position, I'll get that out in a moment, is still very strong, Mr Mayor. I note that our outstanding rates at the 30th of November are slightly higher than they were last year, and that was at the conclusion of the second rate instalment being due. And there has been a variance to our operating budget, but that has mainly been due so far to grants having been received in advance at the 30th of June. So overall, Mr Mayor, the message is that we're on track for another successful year as far as our financial performance is concerned, and I'm sure the second half of the year will continue to perform very satisfactorily and have a good result and get a good program completed. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. If we might move on to item C 2.1, Assembly of Councillors. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Council records for the period 27th of November 2019 to the 11th of December 2019.
That was seconded by Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye, take that as read. Moving on to item C 2.2, Adoption of Council Policy Manual 2020. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council revoke the existing 2019 Council Policy Manual and replace it with the updated 2020 Council Policy Manual as attached.
Seconded for that motion, Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
Council maintains a policy manual which contains policies formally adopted by Council. The policy manual is essential in our governance framework, providing consistency and equity in decision-making, customer service and operational efficiency. It's also reviewed and modified annually.
Thanks, Councillor Marr. Moving on to item C 3.1, you might as well remain standing, Councillor Marr. The Quarterly Strategic Land Use Planning Update. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council receive the 2019 fourth quarterly update on the Strategic Land Use Planning Work Program included in Attachment 1 to this report.
Second for that, Councillor Ripper. Is that opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
Okay, with regard, I'll just briefly go through Attachment 1, the North Sale Development Plan and Developer Contributions Plan. The adopted development plan is available to view electronically on the Council's website and available in hard copy at the Shire Office. Detailed work continues in the preparation and complex infrastructure funding arrangement, which is seeking to equitably apportion costs associated with the infrastructure provision across the developable land. And a further update is based on the progression of outstanding work, which is expected in May of 2020. With regard to the West Sale and Warwick Industrial Land Supply Strategy Technical Report, the consultants Urban Enterprise have been preparing the technical reports to support the detailed master planning of the land. The recommendations of the draft reports have identified a number of matters that require further detailed consideration. Officers are currently working with relevant authorities to address these issues prior to finalising the reports. Planning in the Economic Growth Zone, otherwise known as PEGS, Council is also currently working closely with the State Government Smart Planning team to translate the Wellington Planning Scheme into a new statewide format. This work is expected to be formalised in early 2020. The Port of Sale East Bank Redevelopment Study. This is the land located on the eastern side of the Port of Sale and formerly occupied by the Sale High School and Specialist School. Ratio planning consultants have prepared draft planning scheme provisions to facilitate appropriate uses and development on the site. It's currently being reviewed by a range of stakeholders and will be presented to Council in 2020 for their consideration. Maffra structure plan. The background preparation work has commenced on the Maffra structure plan, with mesh planning consultants having been appointed to undertake this work. The process will involve a component of community engagement beginning in early 2020, with further details and updates to be provided on the Council website as this study progresses. It's anticipated that the structure plan will be completed mid to late 2020. A review of planning controls with regard to the RAF-based East Sale. Background work is currently underway to review and assess updated noise contour mapping to support the ongoing operation of the airfield. A planning scheme amendment to formally incorporate new controls is likely to commence in 2020-2021. C99, updated flood mapping. This amendment will be further considered by Council once a statewide policy and strategy response to coastal flooding and coastal climate change adaptation is finalised by the state government. C102, technical amendment. This is being presented for Council's consideration tonight, so I won't discuss that further. C103, West Sale industrial land. This is applied to 55 hectares of land immediately adjacent to the east of the West Sale Airport. This was formally approved by the Minister for Planning on the 24th of October 2019. And C94, rezoning of the former Sale Police Station site. The state government is continuing in its work to resolve the issues of the removal of native title on the site, which is currently preventing sale of the land for development purposes. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maher. And if we might move on to item C 3.2, draw breath for a moment. Monthly planning decisions, October. Councillor Maher.
I move that Council note the report on recent planning permit trends and planning application determinations between the 1st of October and 31st of October 2019.
It was seconded by Councillor Rossetti. Is it opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor May, wish to speak to this?
Could I just add that it's pleasing to see that a permit has been approved for the restoration works and mural to the Coffee Palace in Yarram. The exterior has already been painted and is currently looking fabulous. And with the advent of silo art, street art has certainly made a comeback. And this is something that is going to form the mural to the side of the building. So it's certainly hoped that these works will attract people and encourage them to stop and visit Yarram and therefore support the economy. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maher. Moving on to item C 3.3, Timber Towns Victoria. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you. I move that Council reinstate its membership with Timber Towns Victoria from January 2020 forward, and to nominate Councillor Hull as Wellington Shire Council's delegate for the Timber Towns Victoria Committee for the January 2020 to December 2020 membership period.
Second to that motion, Councillor Ripper, I think by that much. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Crosley?
I should ask whether you're going to accept it.
Oh, will you accept that nomination, Councillor Hull?
That's a yes.
I thought it was. I thought it was a given. That's a...
Just keeping the protocol. Thank you for the support of this, and thank you for accepting this responsibility, Councillor Hull. Councillor Hull has had vast experience in this field and certainly was involved with the inaugural Timber Towns.
12 years president.
Yes, 12 years of presidency, so you do know a thing or two about it all. It's actually very important. This is a culmination of 20 different councils that are interested and have an interest both in the public forestry as well as private forestry operations, and also the incredible importance that it has in these communities, most of which are in regional and some of them very small regional councils, that it's a very big impact on them indeed. It's also that it was in recession. We've been a member previously, and certainly because of the changes and the recent announcement of the government, that it's very important to reinstigate it so that we can work, as it says, to provide leadership and advocate on the interest of local government in these impacted areas of the timber industry. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crosley, and thanks, Councillor Hull, for accepting that nomination. Moving on to item C 3.4, Proposed Communications Tower Lease, Licola. Councillor Hull.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to move the Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to establish a lease on council land located at Park Reserve, Licola, more specifically described as Part 1, Lot 1, LP 91309, for a period of up to 20 years. 2. Council advertises intention to lease land at or below market value, subject to the provisions of the Local Government Act of 1989, Sections 190 and 223, including calling for submissions in relation to the proposed lease. And 3. Subject to not receiving any submissions, Council will authorise the Chief Executive Officer to progress the lease at or below the current market value, including executing necessary documents. And 4. As per the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Hull. Seconded by Councillor Bye. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Did I get that right? So I'll get my sequence out of order then again. It's all right. Stunned silence. Right. Wish to speak to that, Councillor Hull?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor.
This through.
Licola, as we all know, is right at the far-flung area of our shire. It doesn't have power. Communications were very poor, and we were always getting complaints about lack of mobile coverage. This tower, if the lease is accepted, will give a 3 kilometre spread around the Licola township, which will bring the town into the worldwide type of the mobile phone. But it will also add to the life of Licola, which right now no longer lives on diesel generators for its power. It is now probably the first town in Victoria that is now fully solar driven. And hopefully councillors in the new year will be able to go up there and have a look at the growth of Licola. At those of you who don't know it, it is a special camp. It's an old timber mill site, and it's now a well-established, well-modernised camp for people, or particularly for children of underprivileged families. And every week there's at least 3 busloads of kids up there. So it'll be a good visit for me up there, because the lights will be on.
Thanks, Councillor Hull. If we could move on to item C3.5, Building Permits Report.
Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move the Council note the report of building permits issued from the 1st of July 2019 to the 30th September 2019.
That was seconded by Councillor Rossetti, who was very quick out of the blocks. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. We had 244 permits issued last quarter and total $50,081,000, which is fantastic. A couple of things that we actually did which are of interest. There's a permit there for, everyone remembers the meat processing facility, or the abattoirs, that had a bit of a fire incident. They've got a permit in there for $500,000 to start rebuilding that, which is fantastic for the area. We also have $4.3 million for Yarram Health Services. That's an extension to stage 5 of the new health centre in Yarram, so that's very exciting. The Fulham Prison, the next stage there is $16.6 million. We have the stage of the Cameron Sporting Complex upgrade, which is $2.07 million. And exciting for Hayfield, we have a permit in there for an 8-lot subdivision to help Hayfield keep growing. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Bye. Might move on to item C3.6, proposed lease 8 Foster Street. And I think we have your attention again, Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move the Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to establish a Crown land lease at 8 Foster Street sale for a period of up to 21 years. Item 2. Council advertises its intention to lease land at market value subject to the provisions of the Local Government Act 1989, Sections 190 and 223, including calling for submissions in relation to proposed lease. Item 3, subject to not receiving any submissions, Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to progress the lease at the current market value, including executing necessary documents, and item 4 as read.
Seconder for that motion, Councillor Ripper. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. People mightn't realise where 8 Foster Street is. 8 Foster Street sale, if everyone remembers, before we relocated the Tourist Information Centre to this building, was where the Tourist Information Centre was housed as you come into Sale from Melbourne on the right-hand side. So since 2018 in January, when we relocated the Tourist Information Centre, it has been empty. We ran an expression of interest to see if we get a business to actually take up that prestigious site, and we have some exciting news that we have actually found a tenant. So it's great to fill a building in Sale. It's such a good location. I can't announce who is actually going into that building, but we look with anticipation to see when the signs go up and see who's actually in there.
Thanks, Councillor Bye. If we move on to item C3.7C, C102 Technical Planning Scheme Amendment, Councillor Marr.
Oh, hang on. Oh, I need to go.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Stevens.
You don't need to go, you need to leave the room.
I'd just like to declare that I have an indirect interest because of a conflicting duty under Section 78BA of the Local Government Act 1989, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. We'll just wait for Councillor Stevens to go.
When you've got to go, you've got to go. It's Christmas, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, you don't have to be serious about what you do. Just thought I'd add that. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council, 1, in accordance with Section 8A of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, request the Minister for Planning to authorise Council as the planning authority to prepare Amendment C102 to the Wellington Planning Scheme, and 2, pursuant to Section 21 and 22 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, request the Minister for Planning to exempt Council from giving notice under Sections 19.1a, 19.1b, 19.2 and 19.3 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Seconder for that motion, Councillor Crosley. Is that motion opposed? Not, the motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
This amendment involves minor anomalies that have been identified, and there's approximately 30 items plus on the list. They basically include minor spelling errors, redundant controls and correct mapping errors, etc. Please note that this is policy neutral, so all impacted landowners have been notified and we do have their consent in writing. The explanatory report that is in the attachment provides further information with regard to this. Thank you. Oh, and can I also just say thank you to the staff members that have actually worked very hard on this. It's been a lot of work and well done.
Thanks, Councillor Marr, and we might return Councillor Stevens to his seat. And moving on to item C3.8, Drought Funding Allocation. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that Council write to the Minister for Agriculture, Jacqueline Symes, seeking approval to use the State Government's $500,000 Community Priorities Fund to provide additional rate relief for farming families, consistent with Council's resolution at item C3.1 of the 6th of November 2019 Council meeting minutes.
I think that was seconded by Councillor Hull. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. As Councillor Stevens has already mentioned in a previous report tonight, back in October, we're lucky with Premier Andrews allocated $31 million in drought funding package for Victoria, and it's still needed. We're heading, unfortunately, into another dry year. The farmers are struggling, and anything that we can actually help with the farming community will be well received by the farmers. So that package received of the 31 million, we got allocated 3.81 million. 3.31 million was a local government support payment that we'd already decided to give rates relief. So that is coming out in January. We also had $500,000 of part of that to a community priorities fund. What we do is we don't just decide ourselves what we do with money for drought and helping the farmers. We have a representative group of a cross-section of the farming community. We go to them, we sit down and we try and work out the best way we can actually help farmers. We decided that giving another 5% rate relief on top of the existing 3.31 million would be what we should do with that money. So we decided that we'll allocate that $500,000 in rate relief. After we'd done that decision, the federal government also decided to allocate some funding towards the drought, and they allocate another $1 million. We're still seeking advice of what we can actually do with that $1 million, so we're just holding that at the moment till we get that advice. We have left over from the $1 million that we'd have previously allocated to cards that they could spend in the local community. We still have $490,000 left of that money. So we're looking in the future months to actually allocate that appropriately as well. But for this motion, we're just going to allocate the $500,000 at this point in another 5% rate relief, which I think will be well accepted.
Thanks, Councillor Byer. If we move on to item C 4.1, Draft Environmental Sustainability Strategy 2020-2024, Councillor Crossley.
Thank you. I move that Council authorise the public release of the Draft Environmental Sustainability Strategy 2020 to 2024 as part of stakeholder engagement process.
Second for that motion, Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Crossley.
Thank you. This is a very important document. This is the second iteration of the strategy, but I think it's a much more precise and a much more, I don't say the word adventurous, but much more, has real targets for it and less on the motherhood and more on the action. So I think it's a great document, and I really hope people really get into it and have a good look, and we expect and hope people have some feedback for it. This is, it's actually come out of the survey that was really well responded to by the community, and it's really interesting that the community were much more precise in what they wanted to see. And got some statements here of what we heard from our community. Our community is becoming increasingly concerned about the future of our environment. Waste, litter and cycling issues are a key concern. The diversity and beauty of our nature is valued, and the access to the natural environment should be balanced with the need to conserve and protect. The use of alternate renewable energy sources is encouraged and supported, and our community is seeking access to more information, education and support and sustainable living. In fact, our community want us to show leadership, and I think this strategy just does that. I think our communities are wanting our nation to show leadership, and I think it's really disappointing that globally we've had a massive disappointment that from the 25th meeting of the Conference of the United Nations on Convention of Climate Change in Madrid really failed to actually respond adequately to address this issue. So we can't save the world, but we can certainly respond to our community's desire to work towards a carbon-constrained economy and to actually work towards to make a real difference locally and assist our community to do so. So I really hope people respond to this document, and I think it's a great step for this council to move in this direction. And as you say, as Ross Garno said, a carbon-constrained economy is an opportunity, not a threat to jobs, and it's much better for our environment. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crossley. I couldn't have said that last bit any better myself. Well done. We move on to item C 4.2, Place Names Committee Minutes, but I understand we have someone in the gallery who may wish to speak to this matter. So if they'd like to come forward to the lectern, state your name, where you're from, and also we assign a 3-minute allocation in regard to this matter. Thank you.
My name's John Maltzahn. I come from Stratford. I'm here to challenge a recent rejection of a request to the Place Names Committee. I understand you've all got copies of that request. 2 grounds for my challenge. First is that I believe the request met all the requirements of this council document, and I believe that you've got copies of the 2 relevant pages. Now, this register states, and this is the document is dated July this year, so it's a current document. This register states, for a commemorative name, the requirements are the person being commemorated should have had a direct and long-term association with the feature or made a significant contribution to the area or region. The register then provides a list of 4 groups of persons who meet one or both of these requirements. One of these groups is developer or restorer of a feature or place, and a second group is donor of the land to the community. If you examine my request to the Place Names Committee, it's very obvious that the developer was my late mother-in-law. She was the driving force behind the development, despite being 89 when she received her planning permit. She also did it on the pension with a reverse mortgage and selling off the plan. It was a remarkable achievement. Now, on this second group, donor of the land to the community, this is a bit tongue-in-cheek. While all developers are motivated to pay to build roads in order to sell lots and make a profit, when titles issue, ownership of the road reserve and the road transfers to council. The developer, in effect, unwillingly donates the asset to council for the use of the community. This proposed road will provide benefits to the community in the form of a shorter, safer route for children to access the nearby school and the new reserve. And to further improve local connectivity, Council's planning to run a 2.5 metre wide footpath on a route along Lloyd Street, Redbank Road, through part of the new road and through the reserve to Blackburn Street. A second ground to challenge the rejection is I have an email, which you all have a copy of, from Geographic Names Victoria, that states that a deceased developer's name is ordinarily acceptable under the naming rules for places in Victoria 2016. Now, as they're charged with administering the Victorian Place Names Regulation, it's reasonable to assume that that would be an expert opinion. So accordingly, I request the decision by the Place Names Committee to reject my request be reviewed. And lastly, why am I making this presentation? Because my mother-in-law was a remarkable woman, and I probably exceeded by 3 minutes. I won't go on and tell you just how remarkable she was.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. And there'll be a written response in regard to that matter from the CEO prior to Christmas. So we move on to the motion. Councillor Maffra.
I move that Council receive and note the minutes of the Place Names Committee meeting held on the 3rd of December 2019. 2, the name Davidson be added to the Council-approved road name register for the Stratford area. 3, that the name Wallard Lane be used for the subdivisional road at 172 Pearson Street sale. 4, that the reserve proposed as part of the new subdivision off Blackburn Street, Stratford, be named Mary Treasure Reserve. 5, that the name Hogan in recognition of Kevin Hogan be approved for a road within the Cabanes Estate subdivision. And 6, that the following Anzac names be added to the Council-approved road names register for the areas listed within the municipality in the attached minutes. Antquetil, Aspinall, Barton, Bottomley, Brain, Burgess, Clayton, Cousins, Cox, Davey, Dodds, Garland, Jamil, Guy, Harrison, Higgins, Hughes, Joy, Kelly, Langtip, McCooey, Meldrum, Minchin, Moles, Noonan, O'Neill, Peel, Richards, Roth, C, Slavin, Chusky and Whitford.
Was seconded by Councillor Rossetti. Is that motion opposed? Not. The motion is carried. Councillor.
Where a development of a subdivision is made commercially, it does not afford naming rights.
You want to speak?
However, where land is donated for the community benefit, the name of the developer of that land would be considered. The names register encourages community input, including significant persons that have had influence upon the history of an area. The Wellington Shire Heritage Network, as part of the Anzac commemorative project, has undertaken much research and provided significant number of names to date. And we certainly offer them a thank you for the work that they have undertaken. And these names can certainly be seen at clause 3.7 of the minutes that are attached. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maher. I understand, Councillor Ripper, you'd like to speak to this as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to speak, yes. I would like to speak on paragraph 4, and I would like to thank Council for moving the Mary Treasure Reserve be named, which is off Blackburn Street in a new area subdivision of Stratford. This block was purchased by Council to support the open space plan in the area. Now, the significance of this area, there is 3 gum trees on this block. 2 gum trees are alive. Unfortunately, there was a fire there a number of years ago, I am told, by the fire brigade, and the fire brigade turned up, and one of the trees, which didn't survive, however, it is still there, a large area was cut out of this gum tree, and that is still in situ. And I will be bringing up some photographs, not yet, but I'll move on to Mary Treasure purchased this property at 17 Redbank Road, Stratford. This was made with the intent of developing land in accordance with the existing 31 lot plan of subdivision. Mary had 2 key objectives for the development. First, that it would include a children's playground. This would also take advantage and aid in the preservation of the magnificent ancient red gum trees on the site. Her second objective was that there be a pedestrian path linking Blackburn Street. Mary wanted this footway to provide children and families living in and beyond the subdivision to have safer and better access to the Stratford Primary School and town. If I could ask for a couple. This, you can see here, councillors, where that was cut out by the fire brigade, and it's quite a large area that they have kept that, and it's a magnificent tree. This is only an idea, not in the concept plan, it's just an idea at the moment. Because this will be named the Mary Treasure Reserve, we have the next one, thank you. This could possibly be, Councillor Crosley knows this, and anyone that's driven from Cowar to Traralgon would know this. That, wouldn't it be great for the children in that area and Stratford and in the Wellington Shire to say that we want to go to the Mary Treasure Reserve and open the door and find some treasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Now for something completely different, if we might move on to C4.3, Marley Street North Special Charge Construction Scheme Final Cost Certificate. Councillor Rossetti.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that 1, Council adopt the final cost certificate for the Marley Street North Special Charge Street Construction Scheme, Scheme number 1604, and 2, Council officers prepare the final portion and amounts due from property owners for Marley Street North Special Charge Scheme Streets Construction Scheme. Scheme number 1604, based on the initial estimated cost of $85,000.
Second of that motion. Councillor Maher. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Well, Mayor, it's great to be coming to the pointy end of this construction scheme. Marley Street has been one of those poster child streets in our shire. A lot of the sale streets were progressively being rebuilt to modern standards over time, and then the amalgamation happened. A lot of that stopped, and Marley Street was one of those ones that people kept wanting to do something, but it was challenging to get people over the line. So to get to this stage where Marley Street is looking pretty good, it's been a challenging time for the community. The works took a little longer. There were things like the underground water mains had to be lowered, which delayed things there, and a few other matters. The original scheme here was $885,000. The final costing was about $350,000 more than that, but it did include about $100,000 of existing curb and footpath replacement, which didn't form part of the original scheme. We also included $100,000 of driveway construction, which has been individually invoiced to property owners. But the big difference, of course, was that lowering of the water main. Council could have gone beyond our estimates when we charged the apportionment to those residents of Marley Street. But what we've just done is we've chosen just to use the original estimated cost we provided to the community of the $885,000, because we think that's fair and reasonable, not to throw that extra cost back at those residents. But it's looking terrific, and well done Marley Street residents for coming over the line and supporting the special charge scheme. It's been terrific. We've got a lot of these schemes up and running with the money from the roads to recovery, which has helped a lot, because the amount of the original $885,000, there was $265,000 being shared by those directly benefiting on those properties. So onwards and upwards. There's still plenty more to go, and in fact, I think I have another item coming up.
You do indeed.
About another one coming up.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. Draw breath, and in fact we move on to item C 4.4, Boggy Creek Road Special Charge Stream Construction Scheme Intention to Declare Scheme. Councillor Rossetti.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm feeling a bit sorry actually for our gallery tonight. I'm just doing a bit of a Merv Hughes, shouldn't we, to sort of stretch you from one side to the other and take a break, because you'll need to strap yourself in for this next motion. I move that one, Council commences the statutory process under the Local Government Act 1989, the Act to declare a special charge scheme for the purposes of constructing Boggy Creek Road in Longford and providing all and any ancillary works, including drainage and sealed vehicle crossings. 2, Council, in accordance with section 163(1)A and 163(b)(3) of the Act, direct that a public notice be given in the Gippsland Times newspaper and on Council's website of the intention of Council to declare the scheme at its ordinary meeting to be held on 21st of April 2020 in accordance with the proposed declaration of Special Charge Scheme number 1901 in the form of the attachments to this report for the construction of Boggy Creek Road in Longford. Proposed declaration of special charge. I'd like to take section 3 as read and then move on to section 4, that Council appoint the following 3 councillors: Councillor By, Councillor McCubbin, Councillor Rossetti, and an alternative representative, Councillor Crosley, to form the Boggy Creek Road Special Charge Scheme Submissions Committee that is established by Council under section 223(1)(b)(1) of the Act to consider written submissions, objections, and to hear any persons who in their written submissions under section 223 of the Act have requested that they be heard in support of their submissions. And I'll take the rest as read.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. Seconded by Councillor By. Is that motion opposed? If not, the motion is carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillors, for supporting that. Those who've been involved with the special charge schemes realise there's a lot of steps to go through, which typically involves communicating with those impacted and those who will be contributing to the special charge scheme. Marley Street, there were many times we actually spoke to the Marley Street residents and got their support on the way through. This is the beginning of that process for those in Boggy Creek, Longford. So while there was 80% support of those who responded to the information about the special charge scheme, that number may vary through this process. So this forming of the committee enables people to come forward and say their piece, put their submissions in, be heard about what they like or don't like about the proposed scheme. And it's quite an open and transparent process, but certainly it'd be nice to see Boggy Creek improved. But of course we'll be listening to the community as to what they'd like to see done.
Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. There's no urgent business, CEO. Before we move on to gallery and chat room comments, I'd like to revert back to item A9, which is acknowledgements and presentations. If you beg my indulgence, and Councillor Ripper, I think you wanted to add something in this space.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like, in the acknowledgements, the 2019 Victorian Premier's Volunteer Awards have been awarded, and I would like to bring to the attention of one of our members, Chris Lawless. Chris Lawless is in Bryaglong. Over 25 years, Chris has supported the local veteran community through both Legacy and the Bryaglong RSL. Through Legacy, Chris has provided support to scores of war widows and veteran families through the provision of general welfare support. or practical assistance like organising firewood. Chris has also tirelessly served on the local RSL in a number of committee positions over the years and in capacity of appeals officer. Chris has raised tens of thousands of dollars in support of veterans' welfare. Chris works tirelessly year in, year out to raise funds through the Anzac Day Poppy Appeal, Legacy Week and the local pub raffle. And in fact, if you're in the pub, you're having a meal and he's seen you have 2 or 3 drinks, he comes up and says, well, if you can afford that, you can afford a raffle ticket. In addition to his fundraising efforts, Chris also contributed to the recording of the history of the Bryagalong RSL through the revision and publishing of the Bryagalong RSL book through Gilio's Gate in 2018. Chris also starred in the locally made movie on the same topic. Chris also has a knack for history and is well known as the local expert in military service of the people in Bryagalong and surrounds. Chris has a genuine belief in the community and supporting the welfare officers and under the category of service. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Might move on. If you can just scroll up to the gallery and chat room section for me, that would be useful. Thanks very much. This is the opportunity where people in the gallery get to address council, so just some parameters around that. Gallery comments are an opportunity for members of the public to raise any particular matters they wish. This allows those in the gallery to speak directly to councillors, but it is not a forum designed for open discussion or debate. I'll just repeat that. It's not a forum designed for open discussion or debate. We will listen respectfully to what you have to say and make the commitment that the Mayor will respond to you in writing within 1 week if required, and a copy of that response will be circulated to all councillors. This is not a forum for members of the public to lodge complaints against individuals, including councillors and staff, particularly as that individual gets no public right of reply to any matter raised. We take complaints seriously, and in line with the guidance from the Victorian Ombudsman and Local Government Inspectorate, we request that any specific complaint against an individual be put in writing. This way, your concerns can be properly dealt with while ensuring fairness to all parties concerned. If you wish to speak, we remind you that this part of the meeting is being recorded and broadcast on our website. Council official minutes will record that you have spoken to Council and the subject you spoke to Council about, but it will not record specific comments. We ask you to state your name in full, where you are from, and you have 3 minutes. And I just, in fact, reinforce the parameters that have been set around this in regard to what's acceptable and what isn't. So if anyone would like to now come forward to address Council, if they do so, state their name, where they're from, and there is an allocation of 3 minutes.
My name is Bill Redmond. Please never call me William, that's too posh. I'm a part of the Health in Wellington working group, which is a subgroup from the medical and support groups throughout the Shire. We have an enormous problem. Oh, incidentally, last time I was here and talked to you, there was a round of applause.
Well, you might have to work a bit harder for it.
I was going to say this time, I hope there's nothing you can throw. We have an enormous problem, and it's throughout Australia, throughout Victoria, throughout the Wellington Shire. We have a body mass calculation of the overweight and obesity problem we have in our society. Now, we volunteered to make presentations to the local government, to the local newsletters, and that would have been with the Shire's support. We moved from that understanding that if we want people to change their lifestyle, we don't lecture at them, we talk with them, we release understanding. And to achieve this, we've submitted 3 articles already. They have been supported by an opportunity I had to talk on the ABC, and this council has been noted for its good work in this relationship on the state ABC. so that answered a query I had. The problem with this issue we've got is it leads to such things as high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, joint conditions becoming negative. Some cancers have now been identified and there are psychological side effects. So what we've done so far, and we've had the good fortune, and this council has had the good fortune, to have the support from Professor Gordon Lynch, who's a professor of physiology at Melbourne University. And we have worked very hard between the two of us. I've been representing our local issues, and Gordon, with his expertise, he's recognised throughout the whole world, has been very cooperative. In fact, one article took us 7 interchanges to get it right, which means we're fair dinkum. What we've done so far has raised the issue of the technological age we live in. We are no longer anywhere near as active as we have been in past times, and that is not a fault thing. What our presentation on your behalf is, we're not telling people that they're wrong, we're trying to get understanding. The second article followed a similar understanding, but with one of the two aspects we have to look at very carefully, and that is diet and physical activity. So we emphasised physical activity in the home. The third article is where it all starts to make sense, in that if we look at what metabolism is the intake of nourishment used by your body to keep you alive, keep everything functioning, your brain power, your eyesight, hearing, everything. Now, if we are putting too much fuel into our body, not knowing that, the body stores the energy not needed as excess. And that's one of the main issues we have. We're trying to push forward is an understanding of what metabolism is. Now, from middle age on, your metabolism naturally slows, no matter whether you're active or whatever. So that's another issue into all of this. What we are looking at doing next year on behalf of helping people is looking at the benefits of being with others when you're being physically active. Now, we're not emphasising you've got to go out and be active, but if you're not, there is a consequence. After that, there will be 2 articles on diet. One on the essentials of diet and the other one on what we're doing in our current age. And we'll finish up, if Gordon and I can get it done in 12 months, we'll finish up with an article on sleep and rest. So I'm just here at the moment to bring you up to date. You were very receptive and understanding last time. And I think as a government, we not only handle the functional part of services for our community, but we have their welfare to consider. So with that, I applaud you for the applause last time and wish you and the community behind me the very best for Christmas, and may you achieve those wishes you wish to have.
Well done, Bill. Let's do it again. During that, of course, I received one of those secret messages from my wife, where she just simply said, "Are you listening, Alan?" So is anyone else who'd like to come forward and address council? Good job.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you very much for taking the opportunity to listen to us tonight. I'm Gavin Pryor from the Stratford community. I'm also the president of the Shakespeare Association. Sorry, I'll slow down and just try not to get it all out in 3 minutes. I'm here to talk to you tonight about an opportunity for council and the community to come together as partners in what is an opportunity for us to help grow the arts and culture strategy that Wellington Shire created in 2016. There's an opportunity, you may well be aware of, the Stratford Courthouse is currently up on the market for sale, and the community has been negotiating with the owner of that space for a little bit of time now to look for an opportunity to bring this into as a community-based model, community-run under a committee of management scheme. Council operates some of these schemes in local sporting areas, around the community. We feel that there's also an opportunity for the community and council to partner together to have one for the creative arts, which will be for the betterment of both the local community and also council as well in achieving the goals towards the sustainable strategy that you currently have. And just so I can pick those key ideas out of the strategy, one is the creative livable communities, vibrant places and spaces, inspired governance, and champion art and culture across council to maximise resources. And the last one really is the collaborative development, developing of local capability, encouraging integrated programming. This also gives inspired community and council governance as well. The Stratford Courthouse is not just an arts venue, it's a real true community venue, and we've been blessed by the operation of that building over the last 25 years. Both the owners, the previous owner and the current owner of the building, have been very community minded and allowed not just arts to develop and be brought to life in Stratford and surrounding community, but also supported areas such as Segway and community as well. So that's been running for 7 years. I have some other members I'm sure would like to talk, but I just wanted to raise that with you and just to let you know that we are working with council officers currently. We have a proposed business case and a budget proposal for 3 years, and we're just hoping council would take that on board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. My name's Rachel Nichols and I'm from Stratford community as well. We've also got some youth of Stratford here and I'll allow them to introduce themselves also.
Hi, I'm Elise Parrott. I live in Stratford and I'm... Hi, I'm Kiri Higgins and I also live in Stratford. I'm Lauren McCrell, also from Stratford.
I am Dane Nichols, also from Stratford.
Hi, I'm Abby Collins, I'm also from Stratford.
Hi, I'm Amy Veal and I'm from Maffra, but I'm big in the Stratford community.
That's 6 by 3 doesn't equal 18, just by the way, for those who are counting minutes.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Wellington Shire for their support of the Stratford community. I've been part of the tennis club, I'm also part of the football club, the netball club, cricket club, and we really appreciate your contributions to those clubs in our area. We, as you guys would probably be aware, we've put in a proposal for a small contribution to help with the continuity of the Courthouse Theatre. I'm involved in various capacities. I run a youth theatre group. It's really important for these guys to have their sense of community. I think we're all aware of the mental health stats in our community. This place gives them their sense of purpose and a belonging. Ivan talked recently about young Harry Redfern. He's also part of this lovely little Courthouse Kids theatre group. Being part of that was really integral to his dyslexia intervention. It's also integral for mental health intervention. It's not just learning about acting, it's learning about social skills, it's learning about literacy, it's learning about daily living skills, taking turns, so many wonderful things that these kids need, particularly the kids that are not your sporty kids. We've got plenty of those kids in our community. If you're not successful in sport, where do you find your sense of community? Where do you find your belonging? And in Stratford, it's at the Courthouse Theatre. So it's not just about producing art, it's about these kids having connection. Another young man who was homeless, suicidal, he became part of this community. about 7 years ago. He has since gone on to do a nursing degree and would be here tonight, but he's working as a nurse. He now lives in Traralgon, but still travels to Stratford to be part of that community. We have kids as far as Yarram come to the theatre acting classes, and also Sale, Maffra, we've had Bairnsdale kids come, Bryagalong, Rosedale. Yeah, so it caters for a wider community. It's not just about Stratford. It's about providing these kids with an opportunity to find their sense of belonging outside of sporting clubs. I see the importance in sporting clubs because that definitely provides that opportunity, but these kids are not the sporty kids always. Some of them are, definitely, but some of them are not. And now the kids just want to quickly share their experience and why it's important for them to be part of this community.
It helps with my confidence, because sometimes when I was younger, I used to, every time the teacher called on me, I used to freak out and shake a lot. But ever since I did drama, I have gotten better at confidence. And during high school, thanks to drama, I went from getting low grades to getting B's and A's in public speaking. Thank you.
Well, in drama, it really helps with my reading, because I'm not the best reader in the world, and reading from the scripts and making different emotions really helps in my classes and all types of different things. Also, like Elise, I was very shy as a little when I was young and didn't have lots of friends, and now I have plenty and I always see them down the streets, so thank you.
All my life I've never been a sporty kid, never shown any interest in it, but when I started drama about 6 years ago, I've loved it and I felt finally belonging to a club and to the community.
I'm a member of Groundwork Youth Theatre, which is a 15 to 25-year-old youth theatre that's also based in Stratford. And since I've joined, I've definitely found a sense of belonging and purpose within my community. I was definitely involved in sport, but I found my purpose in theatre, and I think it's a great opportunity for young people to really express themselves and find like-minded people in such a safe community, a safe space, and the courthouse really has provided that for us.
I'm also a part of Groundwork, and drama for me has given me a way to express how I feel about the world, and I play sports, but I definitely prefer drama over sports, and without the courthouse I would really struggle.
Hi, I'm from Groundwork as well, and I really have met a lot of great people being a part of Groundwork, especially coming from Maffra. I didn't know where to find a lot of the options to do theatre and meet people, but coming to Groundwork and meeting all the people from Stratford, I really felt like a community member, so it was fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks again for your time, and I'd really like to extend my gratitude to the community behind me, if you'd like to stand up. We really appreciate you coming along to support the Courthouse Theatre and its continuity. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and reminding us that our future is clearly in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors and community. My name's Brian Tees. I'm from Maffra, not from Stratford, but my second home. I represent Maffra Dramatic Society. I've trod those boards at Stratford. I've directed, had some of these people in the cast, and it's been an absolute delight. It's a safe space for these people to perform, express themselves. And I endorse everything that they said, particularly Gavin and his proposal, and I hope you give it due consideration. It's a very important part of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Leanne Dugan. I'm the editor of the Stratford Town Crier. Thank you so much. I was really quite amazed to see so many people from Stratty that wanted to come and just show that the Stratford Courthouse is not just in drama, it is a community hub. The Stratford Town Crier collates and gets our delivery points from that place. It's also hopefully in the future becoming somewhere where most of us will have our meetings conducted there, so we have a central hub. I've been in Stratford for 35 years and I have seen the courthouse move and change, and I really do think that it is an integral part of our community, both young and old. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Alan Haywood, Pearsondale, and I commend all those who have spoken before me. I won't hold you up long. Alan Haywood, Pearsondale resident. Tonight I just a quick note to councillors. I hope there's no discrimination between those who live near Sale and those who are on the extremities, but I actually submitted a chat room submission on November the 17th meeting, and it actually wasn't read out, so I'm only just here just to read it out so that it's on record. Ruther Foster Street, adjacent to Lake Guthrie. Some time ago, a resident from Montgomery Street area in the gallery comments suggested a new through road could be constructed in the area of the Netherlands to the South Gippsland Highway to ease traffic off Foster Street, which is travelling to the Longford area. The council at the time did not think this was a priority and presumably shelved the idea. At that same meeting, I suggested to start making changes to Foster Street to assist the large volume of traffic, including trucks, buses and vehicles towing trailers, etc. Before the new curbing was poured adjacent to the houses in Foster Street, I suggested to Mr Morecambe that spoon-type curbing would allow parked vehicles to get off the roadway to park on the nature strip. My suggestion was declined. At the moment, when a vehicle parks in the eastbound traffic lane, large vehicles need to actually stop and wait until there is no oncoming traffic before proceeding across the centre line to pass the parked vehicle. Since the council meeting when this was discussed, our Shire has had vehicle counting tapes installed twice, counting vehicles on Foster Street. And my question then was, can our Shire please tell us what numbers of vehicles were counted and how this compares with traffic counts in MacArthur Street? And I'd just like to pass on the response because, as you may be aware, in the past I've sort of suggested that it'd be good if replies to people who speak here were made public and we don't hear the replies to people's questions. So I received a letter from Councillor Hall saying that Council had recently completed traffic counts in Foster Street. The results showed that on average 8,100 vehicles a day use Foster Street. In comparison with MacArthur Street, 6,400 vehicles per day. The existing barrier curb on Foster Street has been installed in line with the infrastructure design manual which Council utilises for all new road infrastructure. The barrier curb is appropriate for Council's busier roads as it provides a physical barrier between the traffic lane and nature strip. This type of curb confines vehicles to the roadway to improve overall safety. Parking is permitted on the northern side of Foster Street and at times vehicles may be required to slow down to safely manoeuvre around parked cars. This is a similar situation to many urban streets around the Shire. Council has no plans to modify the existing curb on Foster Street, signed the Mayor, Councillor Hall. So I just wanted to put that on record that I did ask a question, I did get an answer, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak to council?
John McLindon from Longford. I think the big thing to me that came up tonight, Kevin Hogan, what a wonderful sportsman, champion, come to Sale, football and cricket, and well over 50 years ago. I think the man deserved more than just a road. And I put it to, well, I guess the community should, if they don't already know about a road after him, I think the community would like to know or discuss whether Sale Oval perhaps should be named after him, because you've got the A.O. Ruff Stadium, Councillor Ruff was a great man for quite a few years, and so was Cliff Gamlin, great man. He's got a big stadium up at Sale Oval, but I think overshadowing that would be Kevin Hogan's performance. 650 people at his funeral, not including me, but I couldn't get there. But I just think that should go to the public about whether Sale Oval could be named. And I don't want to tread on anybody's toes or hurt anybody's feeling or family, other families or anything. But that just came up, and I'd like to comment Alan Hayward on the road traffic. It is becoming a problem here and there. I'm not going to drag that out any longer though. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know where to start on this job. I know we've got time limited. You've had a fairly long council meeting and I didn't want to make it any longer. But where do I start? Because I haven't been getting on with council for quite a few years. There's reason. The truth, I guess, has got to come out, but I just don't know why. And of course, there's been lies been told about me, Golden Beach, etc. So I just want to know where we're going to go from here, because, well, we're not going to go into the John Howie song tonight, which is great. I like John Howie, of course, the Howie brothers from Nambrock, and it was wonderful to hear them the other night. But I think where it started, I think I've got to blame, I don't like being open about this, but you can't beat the truth. It all started, in my opinion, when the CEO came here in 2011.
Okay, John.
I'm sorry about this.
No, I'm about to tell you now, you're moving into territory which is unacceptable. I'm going to ask you to return to your seat. I have written to you following our meeting. You may not have received that reply. When you get that reply, digest that reply, and we can have a subsequent conversation. But I'm not, in fact, going to allow you to go down the path you're choosing to right now. So I'm asking you to return to your seat. No, I'm asking you to return to your seat.
You will understand what I'm talking about.
I've asked you to return to your seat. I'm not going to ask you again. I'm not going to ask you again. Now. Thank you. Thank you. John, I've asked you to return to your seat now. You're no longer being heard. So it's as simple as that. Return to your seat now, or alternatively leave the gallery. There are two choices available to you. It's either return to your seat or leave the gallery. One of the two.
I know some of you don't like me.
John, I've asked you to return to your seat or leave the gallery. They're the two options available to you. There are no others. We're going to move on. Is there anyone else who wishes to address council? If not, and before I close the meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to do a couple of things. The first one, in fact, is to acknowledge and to thank John Webstale, General Manager Development, who's in fact attending his very last meeting with us tonight before he retires. Over the last 7 years or so, John's contribution to the running and operation of this council is immeasurable. He's made a sensational contribution. We are all particularly grateful for all he has done. We wish him the very best obviously for the festive season and whatever he chooses to do with his future. So in fact, I'd like to say in the appropriate way, thank you, John, for all you've done. I'd also like to take this opportunity to wish all of Wellington, all of its people, a very Merry Christmas, a safe and hopefully, ultimately, prosperous New Year, and to acknowledge, not only as I've just done with John, but to all of our officers who have served us so well, my sincere thanks for the work they've done. Wish them all a happy Christmas and a very happy New Year, and to my colleagues around this table, congratulations for the way that you've conducted yourself over this last year. So thanks very much. The meeting is now closed.